What I want to talk about is some of the arguments you make here, because you do talk about the SEC's process in vetting Coinbase to begin with prior to the IPO. What do you tell people that the SEC's job here was to kind of have disclosures first and not necessarily questioning the company's business merits at that time? There is some question about whether that argument stands.
Well, good morning, Sonali. It's great to be with you. You are absolutely correct that in April of 2021, Coinbase did list as a public company. And of course, that listing only was permitted after a 6-month exhaustive review by the SEC of our draft S1, our draft registration statement, and many documents, data polls, and all the rest that were provided to the SEC so that they could evaluate what kind of business was Coinbase running. Were we listing digital assets that fell within the scope of the definition of a security under the federal securities laws? What kind of assurances could investors have that this was an appropriate investment to make under the federal law? The fact of the matter is that when the SEC ultimately permitted us to list in April 2021, they did so under a very specific statutory mandate. The laws that govern the SEC's authority in this area are clear. The SEC must give due regard to both the public interest and the protection of investors. And so for an exchange commission to now claim 2 years later, more than 2 years later, that somehow we were running an unlawful enterprise when their mandate requires to consider the protection of investors and their very name, Sonali, requires them to apply their expertise in securities and exchanges. It doesn't make any sense.
Paul, I'm kind of curious here. You know, Coinbase has said that the business model hasn't changed really since the IPO very materially, in the sense of it still is in the heart of what the SEC has allowed. But Coinbase has really added a lot more tokens to trade. How hasn't it really changed?
Well, we have always looked to add assets that are appropriate for not only our customers, but consistent with our lawful authority. And Sonali, that's one of the reasons why Coinbase has applied a rigorous vetting process in evaluating any token or any crypto asset that has requested to be listed on the platform. It's also one of the reasons why more than 90% of the assets that are taken under consideration and reviewed are rejected. And so we're quite confident that our process is rigorous, that it considers all of our legal obligations. And we're even more confident because it's the exact same process that the SEC reviewed back in early 2021 when it allowed Coinbase to become a public company.
You know, there's a lot of questions about how Coinbase plans to expand abroad in the face of a lot of what is happening in the United States, a lot of the regulatory pushback across the industry. So what does this mean for other potential places that you may expand? Hong Kong's lawmaker, for example, has invited Coinbase to apply and register in the region. Do you plan to?
Well, Coinbase has always operated as a global business because, of course, digital assets and cryptocurrencies are very global, are essentially global by nature. In a recent quarter, already something like 20% of our top line revenue comes from our business operations in markets overseas. And so operating in other jurisdictions, looking for other ways to expand is not only part of our history, it's part of our mandate and our mission as a company to bring cryptocurrency to everyone. We will always consider the regulatory climate in every country in which we operate. It is heartening to see countries all over the world, the UK, Hong Kong, India, Singapore, the list goes on, adopting sensible rules for crypto that balance the need to protect investors, of course, but also that promote and protect innovation. It's just unfortunate that as the rest of the world is rushing ahead, the U.S. seems to be leaving itself behind.
What kind of optimism do you have on kind of another part of the market here? There's this question around tokens, but then there's this huge question also around ETFs when it comes to spot Bitcoin trading here. BlackRock had filed for that ETF, Bitcoin ETF, and Coinbase is listed as the custodian for those assets. How much confidence do you have in the approval of a spot ETF, particularly the one you'll be involved in?
Well, we take a lot of heart and have great confidence that the market is responding to what Americans have said about what they want in their financial future. Sonali, something like 20% of Americans have already bought or sold digital assets in one form or fashion. And over 60% believe that our current system needs a serious upgrade. We think crypto is an important part of that. And we think that the market is responding to the American public's desire to have safe, regulated products as part of their portfolio of financial services. When the U.S. government and the SEC in particular stands in the way of that access, they're really standing in the way of what the American people have said clearly they want.